Today in History X, we're going to look at World War I and World War II. Let's get into it. The First World War began with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife, Sophie, by a Serbian nationalist on June 1914 in Sarajevo. The ensuing diplomatic crises and series of alliances led to an undeclared war between two rival camps, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The immediate cause of the conflict was the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina by Austria-Hungary in 1908, which caused resentment among the Slavic populations who desired independence. Ferdinand's visit to Sarajevo was intended to demonstrate Austria-Hungary's authority over its southern territories. However, the assassination led to a political crisis in Europe. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28th, 1914, marking the beginning of the conflict. The Schlieffen Plan, devised by German military leaders, called for a rapid victory over France through Belgium, followed by the defeat of Russia. This plan relied on the neutrality of Belgium and the low resistance expected from the Belgians. However, the plan failed due to several factors, including the unexpectedly strong Belgian defense, the lack of coordination among German troops, and the inadequate transportation system. As a result, the British Expeditionary Force under General Sir John French was able to delay the Germans long enough for the French and Belgian armies to regroup. The stalemate allowed time for the British to deploy their forces from India and South Africa, further complicating the situation. Meanwhile, the Russians had mobilized their army against the Germans and were advancing towards East Prussia. This unexpected resistance forced the Germans to abandon the Schlieffen Plan and adopt a more defensive strategy, resulting in the Battle of the Marne on September 5th, 1914. The battle ended in a tactical victory for the British and French forces, preventing the Germans from capturing Paris and forcing them to retreat. This marked a turning point in the war, as it led to a stalemate along the Western Front. During the war, there were several notable battles that had significant impacts on the outcome of the conflict. One such battle was the Battle of Verdun, which took place in 1916 and is considered one of the longest and most brutal battles in history. The German objective was to capture the heavily fortified French town of Verdun, which they believed would demoralize the French people. Despite heavy casualties on both sides, the Germans were unable to achieve their objective, and the battle ended in a tactical victory for the French. Another significant battle was the Battle of the Somme, which began on July 1st, 1916. The British objective was to break through the German lines and advance towards the city of Cambrai. Despite heavy losses on the first day, which became known as Black Day in England, the British were ultimately successful in advancing several miles beyond the Somme River. The battle continued until November, resulting in a total of 600,000 casualties. As the war progressed, new technologies and tactics were developed and used by both sides. The introduction of tanks, poison gas, and aircraft had a significant impact on the nature of warfare. Tanks were initially used by the British in the Battle of the Somme in an attempt to break through the German lines. Poison gas was first used by the Germans and was particularly effective in causing casualties and disrupting enemy formations. Aircraft were used primarily for reconnaissance and bombing missions. The development of new weapons and tactics led to a stalemate along the Western Front, characterized by trench warfare and high levels of casualties. In addition to the battles along the Western Front, there were also significant conflicts in other regions, such as the Middle East and Africa. The Ottoman Empire's entry into the war on the side of the Central Powers led to the British campaign to capture the Ottoman capital of Istanbul. Meanwhile, the Germans and their allies faced opposition from colonial troops in Africa, particularly from units recruited from British and French colonies. These conflicts resulted in heavy casualties and contributed to the eventual collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the defeat of the Central Powers. Ultimately, the war ended with the defeat of the Central Powers and the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. On June 28, 1919, the treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, disarmament, and war reparations, which contributed to the economic instability in Germany and the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The war had a profound impact on the world, leading to the deaths of millions and the collapse of empire. It also contributed to major political and social changes, including the Russian Revolution and the rise of communism. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the emergence of new ideologies and movements around the world. World War II was a global conflict that involved the majority of the world's nations, including all of the great powers. The war was fought between the Axis powers, primarily Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies, which included France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The immediate cause of the war was the German invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939. Following a period of intense diplomatic negotiations that failed to prevent the conflict, the early years of the war saw the rapid advance of the German military across Europe, resulting in the fall of France in 1940 and the establishment of a German-led coalition government in France. The British were able to evacuate from the beaches of Dunkirk, but suffered heavy losses, losing valuable equipment and supply. The Battle of Britain followed, in which the German Luftwaffe attempted to gain air superiority over the Royal Air Force. Despite heavy bombing raids and significant casualties, the British were able to resist the German advance, thanks in part to the introduction of radar and the resilience of the Royal Air Force personnel. This marked the first time in history that an air force had successfully defended its homeland against an invading power. On June 22, 1941, the Germans launched a surprise attack on the Soviet Union, violating their non-aggression pact. This marked the beginning of the largest land invasion in history, and led to the entry of the Soviets into the war. Despite early setbacks, the Soviets were able to repel the German advance, inflicting heavy casualties and halting their progress. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Japanese had embarked on a campaign of expansion, leading to conflicts with the Chinese, British, and Dutch colonial forces. In December 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing the United States into the war. The U.S. entry into the conflict marked a turning point, as it provided the necessary resources and support to the Allies, allowing them to gain the upper hand. As the war progressed, there were several key battles that had significant impacts on the outcome of the conflict. The Battle of Midway in 1942 was a decisive naval battle between the U.S. and Japanese forces in the Pacific. Despite being outnumbered, the U.S. was able to inflict heavy losses on the Japanese, turning the tide of the war in the Pacific in favor of the U.S. Another crucial battle was the Battle of Stalingrad in 1942, which involved the German and Soviet forces. The battle was a turning point in the war on the Eastern Front, as it marked the beginning of the end of the German advance into the Soviet Union. The German defeat at Stalingrad led to a gradual withdrawal from the Soviet Union. In Western Europe, the Allied forces under the command of Dwight D. Eisenhower launched a series of campaigns to liberate France and other occupied territories. The D-Day invasion in 1944, in which Allied troops landed in Normandy, was a pivotal moment in the war, opening a new front in Western Europe and hastening the eventual German defeat. As the war entered its final stages, the Allies advanced into Germany from the west and the Soviets from the east, with Berlin being one of the last major cities to fall. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered, marking the end of Adolf Hitler's rule and the Holocaust. However, the war continued in the Pacific until August, when the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to the surrender of Japan and the end of World War II. The end of World War II brought about significant changes to the world order, including the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, the formation of the United Nations, the beginning of the Cold War, the decolonization of many parts of the world, and the start of the nuclear age. The war had a profound impact on humanity, causing unprecedented levels of death and destruction, but also leading to advancements in technology and medicine. The legacy of World War II continues to shape the world today, and its impact is still felt around the globe. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.